The first time Lena heard the man in the next apartment, she thought he was talking in another language. The second time, she realized it wasn't a language at all. It was her name, spoken perfectly, backwards. Lena hadn't meant to end up in a place with walls this thin. The listing had called it cozy and full of character, which was real estate code for small and old, but the price was right, and it was close enough to her new job at the radio station. Second floor, end of the hall, one bedroom, windows that actually opened. It was better than sleeping on a friend's couch. The building had once been a hotel. You could tell from the layout, long narrow corridors, too many doors, an echo that didn't quite match the space. Somewhere along the way, someone had knocked down walls, added kitchens, slapped on fresh paint, but the bones underneath stayed the same. Her unit was 3B. The one next to her, 3A, shared her bedroom wall. Guy in 3A keeps odd hours, the landlord had said as he passed her the keys. Works nights, I think. Don't worry if you hear him moving around late. Lena nodded. People kept odd hours all the time. She worked late editing audio, scrubbing breaths and ums out of interviews until her brain heard glitches in every silence. A neighbor shuffling around at 2 a.m. wouldn't bother her. It wasn't the shuffling that bothered her, it was the talking. The first night it happened, she'd gone to bed with headphones still half on, a podcast about sleep playing at low volume. Sometime after midnight, she woke up with one ear bare, the other sore where the headphone cup had pressed. She shifted, reaching to pull them off properly, and froze. Someone was talking. The sound seeped through the wall behind her bed, muffled but clear enough to know it was speech. A man's voice, low and steady, talking in an unbroken stream. No pauses, no hesitations. Lena lay there, heart sluggish with sleep, trying to place the language. It wasn't Spanish or Portuguese like her mom spoke at home, or any of the common tongues she recognized from the station. The syllables felt wrong, too clipped in the wrong places, too stretched in others. Vowels bent backwards, consonants catching in her ears like thorns. It almost sounded like someone had taken normal speech and dragged it along a tape in reverse. She swallowed, blinked at the dark, told herself she was still half dreaming. The voice continued for several minutes, then stopped midstream, like a tape cut off. Silence flooded back through the wall. Lena turned on her side and pulled the comforter over her head, willing her heart to slow. It's just some weird show, she told herself. Late-night TV in a language you don't know. It's fine. In the morning, it was easy to believe that. In the morning, everything sounded normal. Lena worked in post-production at a small local station that mostly handled news segments and cheap ads, but she'd always been a little obsessed with sound. As a kid, she'd recorded herself on an old cassette deck, then played it in reverse just to hear her own voice sound inhuman. Backward speech always bothered her more than horror movies or jump scares. You could tell there was meaning there, buried under the mangled syllables, something trying to reach you from the wrong direction. The second time she heard the man in 3A, she didn't sleep at all. It was 3 nights later. She'd just finished cutting together an interview, her eyes burning from staring at waveforms too long. After shutting down her laptop, she lay in bed in the dark, staring at the faint green blink of her router. At 2:03 a.m., the voice started again, the same steady stream of nonsense, only now that she was awake and listening, she could hear the rhythm more clearly. If you edit audio for a living, you start to hear patterns even when you don't want to. This wasn't random babble. There were breaths, emphasis, repeating clusters of sounds that sounded like words, only inside out. She grabbed her phone off the nightstand, thumbed it open, and tapped the voice recorder app. She held it close to the wall, the thin drywall cool against her knuckles, feeling more than a little ridiculous. The recording lasted just under 5 minutes before the voice cut off again. No sign-off, no shift of furniture, just speech, then silence. Lena lay there, pulse fluttering, staring at the glowing seconds on her phone's screen. "Don't," she whispered to herself. "Just delete it. It's his business." But curiosity has a way of eroding good intentions. The next day, during her lunch break, she loaded the file into her audio software at work. She put on her studio headphones, closed the office door, and stared at the waveform, a dense, continuous block of sound. She reversed it. The playback cursor jumped to the end of the line. She hit spacebar. The voice that came out of the headphones was still the same man's voice, same timbre, same depth. But now the words unraveled themselves in the right direction, like a knot pulled loose. "Lena can hear this now," the voice said calmly. "She's listening at noon. She thinks about deleting this file, but she doesn't. She tells herself it's just curiosity. It isn't. Her hand jerked away from the mouse. The pointer slid across the screen. She ripped off the headphones, heart hammering so hard she could feel it in her neck. No. After a long minute of staring at her dumb, frozen reflection in the dark monitor, she forced herself to put the headphones back on. Her thumb hovered over spacebar. "It's a prank," she whispered. "It has to be. Someone from the station messing with me." She hit play again, backing the file up a few seconds for context. She tells herself it's just curiosity. "It isn't," the man's voice said. She thinks about asking the landlord about 3A. He will say he works nights. He doesn't. She will check the mailbox. It's empty. She will knock on the door at 7:12 p.m. She won't like what she hears. Lena slammed the spacebar again, the audio stuttering into silence. For a moment, all she heard was the blood rushing in her ears. The software's timeline showed the file had been created at 2:03 a.m. and imported into her workstation at 12:17 p.m. 12 minutes ago, she hadn't even thought about the landlord yet. Now she couldn't stop. She went home early, the normal hum of office talk and ringing phones muffled, distant. The building's hallway felt narrower than usual. The old carpet swallowed her footsteps. The numbers beside each door, 3C, 3B, 3A, looked off, as if someone had written them from memory and gotten details wrong. She paused outside her own door, key in hand, and looked at the one next to it. 3A, same cheap lock, same paint, same little brass peephole set too low, like it had been installed for someone shorter than her. There was no welcome mat, no shoes, no signs of life. "He works nights," she muttered, hearing the landlord's voice in her head. "You won't see much of him." Her gaze slid to the row of mailboxes at the end of the hall. 3C had junk flyers spilling out of it. 3B, hers, held a bill and a pizza menu. 3A's slot was closed. No name label, no key mark scuffing the paint. Dust clung to the small metal flap. Lena reached out, thumb catching the edge, and flipped it open. Empty. Not just empty like no letters today. Empty like it had never been used. Her tongue felt dry. She shut her own door behind her and leaned against it, breathing shallowly for a moment. "Coincidence," she said aloud, because saying it made it feel more possible. The walls soaked up her voice. On the other side of the bedroom wall, someone moved. A footstep. A chair dragged an inch. Her skin prickled. 7:09 p.m. Blinked on the microwave clock. She'd forgotten that part in the audio until now. She held still, torn between the urge to run out of the building and the equal urge to prove the recording wrong. 7:10. A soft, rhythmic sound started up behind the wall, like someone tapping their fingers against wood in a steady, slow pattern. 7:11. Lena crossed the living room on legs that didn't feel like hers, opened her door, and stepped into the hall. She stopped in front of 3A. 7:12. She will knock on the door at 7:12 p.m. She won't like what she hears. Her knuckles touched the wood. She considered pulling her hand back. Instead, she knocked. 3 small raps. The tapping on the other side of the wall stopped. For a heartbeat, there was nothing. No movement, no voices. And then, right up against the door, so close she could hear the shapes of his mouth against the wood, the man in 3A spoke. "Odwoi re em anel?" The syllables slid past her ears sideways, wrong and yet almost understandable. It took her stunned brain a full second to realize he had said her name. Adele, Enel, Lena. Another second to realize he'd said, "Can you hear me, Lena?" Only backwards. Her throat locked up. She stepped away from the door without meaning to, the hall tilting slightly. She didn't answer. Not that first night. Not out loud. People in horror stories always do the thing they shouldn't. Lena knew this. She'd edited enough scripted audio dramas to predict every bad decision. In the studio, from a safe distance, it was almost funny to listen to characters talk to the thing in the dark, play back the cursed tape, open the door they'd been warned about. It wasn't funny now. That night, the backward speech started at exactly 2:03 a.m. again. Only this time it was quieter, closer. She lay there in the dark, staring at the hairline crack in the ceiling, listening to the low stream of reversed syllables bleed through the wall. Every time her mind tried to map them onto familiar sounds, they slipped away again. Her phone lay on her chest, one thumb resting on the recorder app. She didn't press it. "If you record it, you'll play it back," she whispered to herself. "If you play it back, you'll listen. If you listen, you'll want to know more." The voice paused. Her whisper must have carried. After a moment, the man in 3A spoke again, still backwards, but slower now, each sound stretched. Woyas nitina, anal. She could hear it, clear as if he'd been lying in the bed beside her. Are you saying anything, Lena? She shoved the pillow over her head. Eventually, exhaustion dragged her under. In the morning, she told herself it was time to talk to someone else. Not him. Someone sane. The landlord's office was on the ground floor, behind a glass door with a sign that said management in peeling letters. The landlord, Steve, was a soft guy in his 50s who always smelled faintly of takeout. How you settling in? He asked as she hovered in the doorway. Fine, she said. Mostly. I just wanted to ask, how long has the tenant in 3A lived there? Steve frowned. 3A? My neighbor, she pressed. Thin walls. I hear him talking at night. You said he works nights. His frown deepened. No, 3A's empty, he said. Has been since last spring. Can't rent it till we fix the wiring and get the mold looked at. You've got 3B and the couple with the dog in 3C. That's it on your floor. Her scalp crawled. There's someone in there, she said carefully. I hear him, every night. Steve rolled over to the filing cabinet, flipped through some papers, and pulled out a folder. Last tenant in 3A broke lease 8 months ago, he said. Before that, it was some old guy who died. We had to gut half the place. Why you seeing someone going in and out? Just hearing, she muttered. Steve squinted at her, torn between concern and annoyance. Maybe sound from upstairs or downstairs bouncing, he said. These old pipes carry voices in weird ways. But I'm telling you, no one's in 3A. When she left the office, her legs felt unsteady. Someone was lying, or the building was, or her ears were. That night, she gave up and hit record again. Backwards or not, she needed to know. The second file, when reversed, started mid-sentence. Going to say I'm crazy, the man's voice observed calmly. She'll think about booking a hotel. She won't, not yet. She has work in the morning. She always does. Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Who are you? She whispered, knowing he couldn't hear her now, knowing the file was a past version, already finished. The voice continued as if in answer. There are 2 ways to talk about a thing, he said. Forward, like everyone else, pushing words into the future, or backward, pulling them from what's already happened. You hear me because you're standing too close to the seam. She scrubbed backward 15 seconds and listened again, searching for edits, glitches, anything that might indicate a fakery she could understand. The waveform was clean, continuous. They always think it starts with me, he went on. The man who speaks backwards, the neighbor in the empty room. I don't start anything, I just play it back. A chill coiled slowly in her stomach. Backward speech is easier to hear with thin walls and tired minds, he said. This building is full of it. Old arguments, old prayers, last words. They echo, they bounce. Most people tune it out. You don't. You spend your days cleaning sound. You know how to listen. You know how to reverse things. She thought of all the times she'd zoomed in on a waveform, pinching and dragging, trimming silence and smoothing transitions. I don't want to listen to you, Lena muttered, even as she turned the volume up a little. The man chuckled faintly in her ears. That's what you say now. Later, you'll be the one talking. You don't believe me yet? You will. The file ended in a soft hiss. No name, no explanation, just that calm certainty. For the next week, her life split into 2 tracks. The forward one everyone else saw, and the backwards one she listened to alone. Midnight recordings, lunchtime reversals. Each new file started the same way, a solid wall of reverse speech, 5 to 7 minutes long, same timestamp. Each reversed playback continued the pattern, commentary on what she had done, what she was doing, what she would do, sometime soon. She thinks about deleting all the files at once. She doesn't. She moves them to a new folder instead. She calls it temp. It isn't. She will look up the previous tenant online. She won't find much. She'll find an obituary. She'll find a note about how he died quietly in his sleep. That part will make her laugh. It was like listening to someone read out stage directions for her life. He never told her anything huge. No lottery numbers, no deaths of famous people. Nothing she could test against the outside world. Just small, unnervingly accurate predictions about her. What mug she'd grab from the cabinet, which word she'd mistype in an email, the exact time she'd glance at the clock and decide to go to bed. Things that felt too small for anyone to care about, except whatever was talking through those walls. The more she listened, the more something in her brain adjusted. Reversed speech stopped sounding alien. If she let the file play backwards for a few seconds before flipping it, she could almost hear the intended meaning underneath, like a melody hiding in static. One night, as she lay in bed with no recorder on, no headphones, just the wall and the dark, the man in 3A started his 2:03 a.m. monologue as usual. For the first time, she understood a word without reversing it. Anal, he murmured. Lena. Her name, sliding sideways through her bones. She didn't sleep at all after that. At some point, predictions stopped being neutral. The first time he mentioned an accident, she almost threw up. She is not going to work tomorrow, the reversed voice said matter-of-factly over her headphones. She plans to. She sets an alarm. She doesn't wake up in time. The bus she meant to take doesn't arrive at the station. It never makes it there. She will see the footage later, the grainy video, the flashing lights, the crushed metal. Lena jabbed the spacebar, fingers shaking. She checked the file details. It had been recorded, like the others, at 2:03 a.m. last night. She hadn't overslept. Not yet. Her alarm was set for 7. The bus she usually took left at 7:45. If she left now, if she didn't sleep at all, she could go in early. Avoid the bus. She stared at the waveform until the shapes blurred. You don't know that, she whispered to no one. You could just be messing with me. But when she imagined going through her normal routine, her skin crawled. When dawn rolled in, pale and wan, she stayed sitting at her kitchen table, watching the clock stumble past 7 frowns, 7:30, 7:45. She called in sick. At 8:12, a notification lit up her phone. Major incident on downtown line. Expect delays. The video clips hit social media 15 minutes later. Someone had filmed the aftermath of a bus skewed across an intersection, glass scattered, emergency vehicles crowding the street. The same bus number she took. The same stop on the marquee. The news later said brake failure, 10 injured, 2 dead. Lena's breakfast sat like a stone in her throat. You did that, she whispered, not sure if she meant the man or herself. That night, the backward speech behind her wall sounded different. Not louder, not faster, just more intent. She recorded anyway. She always did. The next day at lunch, she played it in reverse. Now she believes me, he said. Good, it's easier this way. Did you change it? She asked the empty editing room. Did you make me stay home, or did you just know? I don't change things, he replied calmly, several seconds later in the file, as if answering her. I just move along the tape. I can hear the parts you can't yet. When I speak backwards, I'm pulling words from the places you haven't stepped into. That's all. Then why tell me? Because you're next, he said. Because someone did it for me. Because this building doesn't like to keep its echoes to itself. It passes them along. Up the line. She scrubbed back, played that part 3 more times. Next for what? She demanded. The file ended on a soft, glitchy crackle. The next recording never mentioned the bus again. It mentioned something else. She will stand in the crosswalk tonight, staring at the countdown, the man's voice said. She will feel someone's hand on her shoulder, pulling her back just before the car runs the red. She will turn. There will be no one there. She will think of me. She will think I did it. I didn't. I just heard it first. She avoided that crosswalk entirely that evening. She went 3 blocks out of her way in the rain. The next file, reversed, was almost amused. She thinks avoiding it changes the sound, he said. It doesn't. The recording just gets messier, more edits, more splices. You're making my job harder, Lena. Then stop listening, she snapped at her laptop. You say that now, he replied, half a minute later on the track. But you're already learning. Last night, you heard your name correctly. Soon you'll start hearing more. You won't need me to flip it. That's when it gets loud, sleep and waking blurred. Forwards and backwards did too. She started catching herself humming songs in reverse under her breath. She caught mistakes in other people's speech at work, hearing the shape of a sentence they hadn't said yet in the way they stumbled over a word. Sometimes in line at the grocery store, a stranger's casual complaint sounded to her ears like a splice point. Something that had been cut, moved, pasted. The building grew stranger too. On especially quiet nights, the old pipes seemed to play back echoes of conversations that couldn't possibly be current. She'd hear snippets of radio jingles long off the air, arguments over landlines. Someone leaving a voicemail on an answering machine. All of it backwards at first. All of it slowly resolving into meaning. One night, exhausted and brittle, she made a decision. If the man in 3A could speak backwards and be understood by her when she reversed the file, then just maybe she could reply. She waited until his 2:03 a.m. monologue started. She hit record like always, but instead of lying there silently, she sat up, leaned close to the wall, and forced her sleepy tongue to twist around the strange shapes she'd heard so often. She said, words clumsy in her mouth, "Can you hear you?" It was wrong. She knew it was wrong, but it was the closest she could get on short notice. On the other side of the wall, the reversed speech broke off mid-word. For a second, the silence felt physical. Then, very softly, with a kind of pleased surprise, he answered, "Say." Yes. She didn't record after that. She didn't need to. When the voice resumed, her half-trained brain caught the meaning as it was, without reversal. "Good," he said, the backward syllables washing over her fully understood for the first time. "It's easier when you meet me halfway." Her pulse thudded in her ears. "Who are you?" she asked in plain speech, forgetting to turn the words around. "You," he said simply. "That's not an answer." "It is," he insisted. "Every track needs an endpoint. Every echo needs somewhere to land. They left me here too long. I got stuck to the wall, to the room, to the number. Someone has to take it next. Otherwise it all builds up until the tape snaps. So you just... what? Pass it on?" "I speak backwards," he said. "You listen. You learn. Soon you'll start hearing things before they happen. You already do. Soon you'll wake up and not know which direction your own sentences are going. That's when you move next door. At least that's how it went for me." "I'm not moving into 3A," she whispered. "It's empty." Through the wall, she heard a sound she hadn't heard from him before. Not speech. Laughter. Only like everything else, it sounded like it had already been played once and was now rewinding. "Empty for now," he said. "You'll see. The paperwork will call it a maintenance relocation. They'll say there's a leak in your ceiling, mold in your vents. They'll offer you 3A temporarily, while they fix 3B. You'll be so tired by then you'll say yes. You'll stand in the doorway, listening to the silence, and you'll think it's finally over. It'll just be your turn to talk." "No," she said. "You keep saying that," he replied. "Do you know what you said the first night you spoke to me? The night you thought you were just whispering to yourself?" She remembered the pillow over her head. She remembered hissing, "If you record it, you'll play it back. If you play it back, you'll listen." "You said, 'Don't,'" he murmured. "You never listened to yourself very well." The days after that blurred. The landlord did, in fact, mention a humidity issue in her unit, waving a printout from some inspection. He suggested moving everything next door for a few weeks while they opened her ceiling. "No one's in 3A, he said. "You'll have more space. Same rent." She stared at the empty doorway. The room beyond smelled faintly of dust and cleaning chemicals. No furniture, no personal items, no signs of anyone living there. But the air felt full, like a sound wave frozen, waiting to be played. She signed her name on the form with a hand she barely recognized as hers. That night, in the half-empty space of her half-packed old apartment, the man in 3A spoke backwards as always. Only now, the wall between them was thinner than ever. "You don't have to fight it," he said, each backward syllable sliding directly into her understanding. "You're already doing it. Listen to yourself sometime. Record your dreams. Play them back. You'll hear it. You're talking like I do. You're already dragging words from the wrong direction." "What happens if I refuse?" she asked. "You won't," he said. "But if you did, it would look like someone falling down the stairs, or stepping into traffic, or not waking up. That's what it looks like when the track ends with no one to carry it. It snaps, it recoils, it cuts. And if I agree, then someday," he said, "you'll be the one keeping someone alive without realizing it, telling them not to get on the bus, pulling them back from the light. You'll think you're just talking. They'll think they're just paranoid. The tape keeps running, that's all. No one ever asked why." She slept in 3B one last time. In her dreams, she walked down the building's hallway, doors on either side flickering between numbers. 3B, 3A, 3C, 3, something else. Behind each door, she could hear versions of her own voice, some clear, some warped, all speaking different lines. When she woke up, her phone was recording. She hadn't opened the app. The file was 5 minutes long, created at 2:03 a.m. She brought it to the station, reversed it, and listened. "You're going to hear this later," her own voice said calmly in her ears. "You'll pretend not to recognize yourself. You will anyway. You'll think there's still a choice. There isn't. We all speak backwards eventually. We all try to warn ourselves from the other side of something. You don't want to be me." Her own voice added softly, "But you already are." She moved into 3A on a Tuesday. The room was just a room. White walls, new outlets, a slightly off-center window. She set up her bed against the wall she used to share. That night, for the first time since she'd moved into the building, the 2:03 a.m. monologue did not come from next door. It came from her. She woke up with her throat sore, her tongue heavy, the last backward syllables fading from her lips. Her phone, on the nightstand, showed a fresh recording, 5 minutes long. Her own voice, reversed. Somewhere beyond her wall, in 3B, someone else shifted in their sleep, their ears marking the first time they'd hear the man next door mumbling in a strange, uncomfortable language. The building hummed around them, pipes and plaster and old wood full of overlapping echoes, some moving forward, some dragging behind. If you ever find yourself in a new apartment, lying awake at night, and you hear your neighbor talking through the wall, steady, rhythmic, wrong somehow, and curiosity pushes you to record it, to play it backwards, to listen, don't. Because if the voice on the tape begins to tell you what you're going to do next, and if it's too accurate, and if they ever say your name just right, understand this. You're not just listening to someone else's future. You're listening to your own voice, bleeding in from the other side of a moment you haven't reached yet, trying to pull you along the track. And once you recognize yourself, once you start answering back, that's it. From that point on, sooner or later, there will be someone on the other side of your wall, lying awake at 2:03 a.m., wondering why the man next door won't stop speaking backwards, and why, when they finally flip the recording, it sounds so much like them.